Hi, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we have quite a few participants. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Lisa Trujillo. I'm a communications manager. Thanks for joining us for the State Contractor COVID-19 Vaccination Requirement meeting. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and begin with our folks who are going to be participants today, are presenting with us. Bob Jaros, Ann Haas, and Nate Weatherford. I would like to ask that you do, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. We will respond to them at the end. Also, once this recording is finished, we'll do what we need to do, get it posted on the website on Monday. So it will be available on Monday, the recording as well as the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off or turn it over to Bob Jaros. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome everyone. We'll start out with the background as you saw on the table of contents there. So Governor Polis announced on July 30th that starting September 30th would require employees in the governor's purview to attest the COVID-19 vaccination status, provide a copy of the vaccine record, or submit twice weekly serial testing. And then Public Health and Environment issued 6th public health order on August 31st, and that implemented the vaccination requirements for all state contractors and state contractor workers who physically entered a state facility. Next. So since then, you can see there have been the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. We are now up to the 13th public health order, generally issued every month. And this one, released on February 28th, expires March 15, 2022. Okay. So the definitions in the 13th public health order did not change any of the definitions in Article 4. And some of the key definitions for vaccine requirements in Article 3 are as follows. And again, we'll go through these pretty quickly since they haven't changed. So state contractor, you can see the definition there, and that hasn't changed. It's the all entities or persons that have entered into or accepted a state contract to transact business with a state, as well as all entities or persons that have one or more employees, agents, or subcontractors who provide services in or deliver goods to a state facility or a client, resident, patient, or youth residing in a state facility. And then a state contract worker means all of the state contractor's employees, agents, subcontractors, and all employees of the state contractors, agents, and subcontractors who perform work under the state contract. Okay. State facility is a building, utility, school, or any other property owned, leased, or used by the state for the state services, excluding highways or publicly assisted housing projects. And fully vaccinated means 2 weeks after the receipt of a second dose of a 2-dose series of COVID-19 vaccines, such as Pfizer, Moderna, and 2 weeks after the receipt of a single dose of COVID-19 vaccines, such as Johnson & Johnson Janssen vaccine. So that definition, as well as these other definitions, did not change in the 13th public health order. So let's get to the 13th public health order. And I'm just going to do one slide here, then I'm going to turn it over to Ann. So the first slide we have here is kind of an overall approach to the 13th public health order, which makes a key distinction between state contractors and state contractor workers who physically enter a residential or congregate care state facility or versus a state contractors and state contractor workers who do not physically enter a residential or congregate care facility. So Ann's going to go through further detail in terms of those two scenarios and what the requirements are for each of those different scenarios. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ann.
Thanks, Bob. So with this newly amended order, as Bob described, we have different requirements for those who do enter a residential or congregate care facility and those who do not. So in this slide, those who do not physically need to enter a residential or congregate care facility as a state contractor or state contractor worker, those individuals, those organizations are no longer required to provide attestations on their vaccination status. They are no longer required to participate in twice weekly COVID testing. They are no longer required to wear face coverings, though they may still choose to wear face coverings. And these requirements could change dependent on rising cases or new variants emerging, but the public health order at this time does not impose the requirements that have been in place since that 6th public health order was issued for these individuals. For individuals who do physically enter a residential or congregate care state facility, these requirements are largely the same. So meaning the public health order requirements for these individuals did not change. They still need to verify their COVID-19 vaccine status. All of these individuals need to be identified by name, meaning the individuals who are entering these facilities to provide goods and services to an individual in a residential or congregate care state facility. And there needs to continue to be a certification in a form acceptable to the Department of Personnel and Administration, the vaccination status of each of the identified workers. Proof of vaccination can be provided in the ways as described on the slide. This also has not changed. These were all of the options available under the public health order as it has been written for the last 6 months or so. So again, a COVID vaccination record card is proof of vaccination. A photo of a COVID-19 vaccination record card or immunization record obtained from our Colorado Immunization Information System, or SIS, is proof of vaccination. A photo of a COVID-19 vaccination record card or immunization record obtained from SIS, either directly or through the My Colorado application or another verified health application, stored on a phone or electronic device, or documentation of the vaccine from a healthcare provider. So state contractors and contract workers who do physically enter these settings, these residential or congregate care settings, and I'm going to back up a little bit in terms of the requirements. So the public health order has required for these individuals entering these congregate care and residential settings that vaccination status be attested to, and for individuals who are not vaccinated, but who have an employer approved medical or religious exemption, those individuals are required to test twice per week. That requirement has not changed. It remains in place for individuals entering these facilities. In addition, this slide indicates that if the individual who is testing, because they are not vaccinated, not fully vaccinated, tests positive, that individual is to continue to follow the isolation guidance that the Department of Public Health and Environment has issued. So if they test positive, they need to isolate for a minimum of 5 days. And if their symptoms are improving after the 5th day, then they can wear a mask for the next 5 days and they may return to work at that point. So again, testing positive means that isolation is required for a minimum of 5 days. If ultimately on day 5 symptoms are not improving, then the individual needs to continue to isolate until symptoms do improve. Face coverings. So state contractors and contract workers will need to comply with any requirements that a particular facility has regarding face coverings in that setting. So there is not a statewide mandate for face coverings in all settings. The public health order does have some individual settings that are still required for face coverings, in particular for not vaccinated or not fully vaccinated individuals. Those include settings like healthcare settings, corrections facilities, homeless shelters. So whatever facility is being entered by a state contractor or state contractor worker, they are required to comply with that facility's particular requirements around face coverings. This public health order does not broadly require face coverings in all settings.
Okay, and thank you very much, and very much appreciate your participation with us, Ann, in this briefing. Now it's time for the Q&As. Nate, what Q&As do we have in the queue or in the chat?
Currently, we have one question.
Okay.
What if a worker enters residential or congregate care facilities on behalf of the state, but not a state facility? For example, a private prison, a private residential care facility.
So I can start. So if the work is being done in, and I'm not quite sure based on this question, so it might need further elaboration, but if the work is being done as part of a state function and is being performed, so if it's leased property, the state is performing a service on property leased by the state, that would still can be considered a state facility. And if it's then a residential or congregate care facility, all of the requirements that I've just described for those workers would apply.
And what are your thoughts in terms of the example there is a private prison? So it may not be leased by the state, but it certainly is doing a state function in that regard.
I think the two examples in this question are a bit different. So I'll start with what might be the easier one, the private residential care facility.
Yeah.
So in that setting, absent another requirement by that facility in particular for individuals who enter, that would not be considered a state facility that is subject to the requirements of the public health order. A private prison, I think I don't know if you have an opinion on that, Bob. It is a function of the state, but being done through, I presume, a contract with the state to operate that private prison.
Correct. Yeah, so that also would not be a state facility.
I think that's right. Do recall, though, relatedly, that at least at this moment in time, this public health order does have some masking requirements for those facilities, for whether they're private or public, for corrections facilities.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, Lisa, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Nate. Well, I guess that concludes our briefing. Again, thank you for joining us. I will be sending out a link that will take you directly to where this information will be posted. I will send it out to all the invitees. So have a great weekend, and until next time.
Very good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.